Hey students, it's me again, and this is our last short video for our Monday, September 14th lesson. I'm talking way too much about these original subsistence strategies because I just love talking about them. But like I said, cultural geography usually overlooks these when it's talking about the why of where, because populations are low and human history is very, very old. You know, this is like ancient human history when we're talking about these subsistence strategies. These three subsistence strategies that we've talked about so far, foraging, horticulture, and pastoralism, these still exist in the world today. They still support peoples around the world. However, they are not like horticulture is not very common at all. This, letting land lie fallow and being left alone for many decades and then clearing the land is not seen as something that's very environmentally sound these days. What horticulturalists do when they let land lie fallow and then they clear it later, it's called swidden horticulture. Swidden means that you are clearing the land in a method that is often called slash and burn, and that sounds very violent, doesn't it? But if you have let the land go back to nature, you've got trees, you've got grasses, you've got all kinds of animals, you've got all kinds of, carcasses of dead animals and, poop and all this kind of stuff that have happened over 25, 30 years as the land went back to the forest. And basically what men do who prepare the fields in a horticulturalist society is they cut all of these trees down, they pull the roots up, and they burn it in place because the ash that is left over is very, 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 how many berries can I add in here? Very, very, very good fertilizer, a natural good fertilizer that that makes that land arable all over again. And when you go to a certain amount of your arable land, when you transition from one set of fields that you are cultivating to another set of fields that you have slashed and burned, you let this other set of fields that you have used in previous years, you let it go fallow, and you're not going to get around to slashing and burning it for another 30 years or so either. So anyway, some people say that this slash and burn is horrible for the environment. They might have good arguments under certain circumstances. However, in general, as far as sustainability and nature are concerned, fire and ash are part of nature, and ash is wonderful for the soil. Ash, especially when it has all these wonderful little critters and things in it. Ash is great for soil because it replenishes all the nutrients and everything, and it makes that land arable again. So we were in pastoralism already by the time we finished the last video, so let me continue with that. So pastoralism allows you to have larger numbers of people in your population. That's what this should say, larger numbers of people in the population, because animal calories are how you get what you need for survival every day. Mostly animal calories. And it's not every kind of animal, it's the animals that you can drive in a herd. So it's going to be things like cattle, it's going to be things like goats, it's going to be things like sheep, things like llamas and alpacas, those kinds of things. Oh, camels are a big one, camels that you can drive in herds. All of these kinds of animals are able to deal with harsh environments, and people can herd them from one place to the next to find water. So the harsh environments are harsh because they might be too high, they might be too dry, they might be too cold, they might be too hilly, too steep. Okay, so that's what harsh environment means. Some of this too steep situation, I just love looking at pictures of mountain goats who are able to just I don't know how they get up on the peaks of these little bitty tiny, mountains that shoot way up in the air, and the sides are so steep, but goats can navigate that kind of thing. Yaks also, I left yaks off from up here, but those can't, yaks can do that too. So there's all kinds of animals that are well fitted for these harsh environments that are hard for humans to find arable land in, but the plants that do exist, or the water that does exist, you can herd these animals to that water, to those plants, and then use the animals as your main calorie source. Foraging is also going to be part of this subsistence strategy. So you're going to get, some calories from foraging sources, but your main calories are going to be from animal sources. And it's not really going to be from meat most of the time. It's going to be from the dairy products. The dairy products that you get. Of course, I'm talking about milk and yogurt and that kind of thing. But it's also going to be, and brace yourself for this, because some of my students in anthropology class, when we talk about this, are a little bit grossed out, but it's going to be from bloodletting. And I'm thinking specifically of my favorite group of pastoralists called the Maasai in East Africa. They're in the Kenya and Tanzania region. And typically, since wealth and social status come from the number of animals that your family bloodline has control of or owns, you're not going to want to kill cows to eat them. You're going to want to have to find a way to harvest from cows what you can to keep them alive, keep expanding your herd, but also get plenty of animal calories. And so, for instance, I'll post a picture in Blackboard from my anthropology textbook of a group of Maasai warriors who are bloodletting, to get some food for everyone to use. And they don't just drink the blood right out of the animal, which is sterile, and no, you can't catch any diseases. If you are a pastoralist, you get extremely high levels of knowledge during your upbringing. You're going to learn from all of those around you how to keep your animals healthy, how to know whether they are diseased, how to know which animal you should bloodlet from and you shouldn't, and how often you can from the same animal, that to still keep the animal healthy and that kind of stuff. You have such a high level of knowledge about how to deal with that animal and how to take that animal from one place to the next in your harsh environment so that it can live off the land, even though the land is not going to sustain a human animal. When human animals control these kinds of animals and harvest what they can for their animal calories, pastoralism works as a very effective subsistence strategy that supports larger numbers of people. Okay, I think that was probably the longest run-on sentence that I've ever said in any of my classes in 17 years of teaching. So anyway, sorry about that, but if you need to rewind and, write anything down from that, that's what YouTube is for, right? And I wonder how the captions put in punctuation, if the captions put in punctuation at all. Okay, let's finish up with pastoralism, and that's all we will do for our Monday class session. This is the third of 3 videos that we'll do for our Monday class session. Okay, so pastoralism is really not on the radar of a cultural geographer because it focuses on land that is harsh environments, and we don't really see, when agriculture comes on the scene, we don't see people like individual landowners or city-states and towns. We're going to talk about city-states and nation-states in one of our later chapters. You don't see people who are in control of governments and policy making. You don't see them be very interested in harsh environments for agriculture because you can't. It's too costly to try to bring water to every place on the earth, or to try to clear all the rocks away from every place on the earth. And some places are just simply too high and don't have oxygen, so your workers couldn't handle working, at that altitude, for instance. So pastoralism is kind of off the radar, and the Maasai that I'm talking about have a 4,000-year tradition in Eastern Africa, and they've really resisted a lot of the push of industrialists, of agriculturalists, of modernizationists, is that a word? Modernists, I guess. They've really resisted to a large extent modernizing or changing their ways over that 4,000-year period. And so we do see today pastoralism practiced very effectively several plaels in the world, but the Maasai, like I said, are my favorite example, so you can look them up if you would like and learn a little bit more about it. I mentioned the Maasai warriors who are bloodletting, so let me finish this last little bit of this video that we have available talking about social stratification, or social inequality is what that means. Social inequality is a little more pronounced or a little more evident is what that means in pastoralism, because you have males, particularly males who have the gender classification of warrior. They are the ones who herd the animals and protect the animals as they are herding them. So for instance, in the Maasai, warriors have to fend off hyenas, they have to fend off lions, they have to fend off all kinds of natural predators who want to eat what's in their herd, and they also have to fend off other warriors from other groups of Maasai, because sometimes the territory kind of crosses, and you know, animals are personal property. Animals are kind of like a bank account for a family line, and so if you can steal animals from another village's group of animals, you know, family lines who you don't know, you're going to steal animals from them to try to increase your family's wealth. So warriors are called warriors because they are the shepherds of the animals, but that means you have to defend the animals sometimes to the death in order to protect the value that you have in your bloodline, in your family's kinship system. So males have a higher position in social inequality, although females still have a very high, you know, compared to today, compared to definitely early agriculture, females have a very high social rank also because we produce the future warriors. We produce the future females who are going to be future child bearers and people who are going to significantly contribute to the upbringing of these children, who are going to ensure that the herd of animals that we rely on exists on into the future. So I have left out a lot of what I would love to talk to you about regarding these first three subsistence strategies, but this is cultural geography class, so I can't focus on it very much anymore. I wanted to mention these specifically, however, because the demographic transition model and Thomas Malthus that I thought I was going to talk about today, but this took too long, are not really focused. They do not look at this era of human history. And we're talking about foraging with 40,000 years ago, horticulture with 13,000 years ago, plus or minus 1,000, pastoralism with probably just as long as horticulture, maybe only 9,000 years ago or so, as far as the archaeological record shows. But also the social stratification and social inequality, that kind of stuff, is pretty interesting to look at, because when we get to the demographic transition model, some of these uptakes in birth rate and downward slides of birth rate, it has a lot to do with women's position in the social hierarchy. There's going to be some interesting gender issues that we get to look at in this demographic transition. And remember, gender is one of the key factors in demographics that we look at in cultural geography. So there's a good teaser for Wednesday, and that was a hand clap that you heard in the background. If you heard something in the background, that was a hand clap that I just did. So this closes us out for Monday, the 14th of September, and on Wednesday, the 16th, my mother-in-law's birthday. Happy birthday, Mimi. We are going to finally talk about Thomas Malthus and the demographic transition, and I will try not to have so many run-on sentences differences. So text me with questions. Bye.